With that, let's go ahead to the next slide, and I will give you a little bit more of an introduction on myself, and then I will turn this over to Gurpreet. So my name is Chuck Hall. I am an executive coach and organizational consultant. I have a lot of years of experience. I guess it's over 40 now, in the corporate world and having my own business since 2007. I have a master's degree in organizational dynamics from the University of Pennsylvania. And that's really an area of focus for me, is how people work together in organizations. I'm also a certified peer specialist for mental health, which gives me a good background. And I draw from my own experience as being a person who is in long-term recovery with complex PTSD. And I'm also on the autism spectrum. So I fully embrace my neurodivergence and welcome the neurodiversity of all people. I will turn it over to you now, Gurpreet. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Chuck. Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Friday, and thank you so much for joining us, Chuck and me today. I am Dr. Gurpreet. I have counseling and psychology degrees. I'm a licensed professional counselor in 4 different states, nationally board certified mental health counselor, practicing in private practice for nearly 18 years. I am also a public speaker, corporate trainer, and executive coach. I give keynote speeches and do workshops on various mental health topics. My favorite or signature one tends to be empathy, the key to building stronger teams and organizations. I am also a self-help enthusiast and explorer of the connections among counseling, Eastern philosophies, and quantum mechanics. I guess I can more talk about it as we go along with this presentation, how all these things kind of come together for me. And as Chuck has gracefully embraced who he is and his I ams, I don't know if I would say I am a bright or gifted person on the spectrum or not, but along with my clients, the topic that we will explore today, a lot of the content I share that has been my journey as well. So I guess we can get started with that. Why this topic? Something is missing is the phrase that had helped me define my dissertation for my doctorate program. And I didn't know at the time that I was finding my niche to work with bright, perfectionist, neurodivergent, gifted individuals, but it happened to be. Thanks to my, I call them Capitol Hill clients in DC, where I first started practicing counseling. Some of the presenting problems I encountered then are still today what I see in my practice. And that's how I have met Chuck, among other individuals in the tech industry who tend to be on that spectrum or gifted, bright side, who tend to have these common presenting problems that I am going to share some of the quotes that are a blend of first when I started on this journey to work with these individuals and what I still see in my practice now. Although nothing on surface, deep inside, I feel I am missing something. It is a question. And one of these presenting problems, it's that I have dealt with this feeling for a long time within myself as well. And as I said, I will share bits and pieces of my journey throughout this presentation. These are the feelings that come from beyond, and we will kind of see where they might be coming from. But for the sake of why this topic, it's because it's a data that I have started to collect that not many people talk about this existential, if we can call it. Now we know it's called existential depression. Another client, or quote from one of my clients is, "I have good career, education, married, and kids, but still feel something is missing, and I feel guilty about it because I have pretty much everything." As a young graduate student practicing for the first time, I didn't know how to counsel someone with this. Although I had felt the same, but I didn't know how to help these young adults with these presenting problems. They don't meet clinical criteria of depression or anxiety or any other mental disorder. And little bit of a profile of these individuals or young adults that I am talking about, where this guilt might be coming from, that these were the individuals who graduated from Ivy League schools, had good lives, good parents, came from good backgrounds, achieved a lot at the age of 23, 24. They've made it. They were told to get good education, get a good job, and you will be set, right? They have graduated from Ivy League schools. Now they are at the Capitol Hill and working with good income, but still feeling unfulfilled, not content. And that's kind of how it started. I started to work with this presenting problem that was so vague, but wasn't meeting any clinical criteria. Another one was, "I don't even know if I need counseling or something. I'm not mentally ill." Again, people had awareness, but I have this vague feeling of something is missing. Maybe it's my job. Maybe I need a new career. Maybe I need a new hobby. And I have had many clients who have repeatedly changed jobs, relationships, and hobbies to fill this void. But it seems bottomless, that it's not ending when you jump from one thing to the other. And another one would be, this is the last example I'll share. I feel sad most of the time, not depressed. Again, people had awareness, not depressed, but sad, and wonder about my existence, purpose, and what the heck I am doing here on earth when I feel like this. Now, this person is a little bit more aware than the last one. That last one would kind of know that I don't know if anybody can help me. But this one, seems to be a lot more aware of that it's related to my existence. It's related to my purpose and meaning or my deeper life. And it's the emotional state, not something clinically wrong. So this is the topic that I have done my research on with my dissertation, because these were the vague complaints or presenting problems, we would call. And when I took these complaints back to my mentors, like, how do I do this? They don't meet any clinical criteria. And that kind of set the foot for, you know what, maybe we need to look into this further. And the research on gifted neurodivergent individuals is so scattered, because each gifted person is miles different from the next one, right? That's as kind of as a researcher or even as a counselor, it's not a well thought expertise, because it's so hard to understand each individual. But in this presentation, I will try to kind of encompass this. Maybe you will feel some of this, maybe you didn't. But this is kind of encompassing a lot of different people, and a lot of different data that I am trying to pull together.
Gurpreet, I just want to jump in and emphasize something that you said. So, as a coach, a lot of times people will say to me, well, what's your coaching program? What are the steps in the program? What's kind of the curriculum? And I
Hmm.
resist that because, and people get this right away, each person is different. And so it isn't helpful to spend time focusing on an area that isn't going to help someone, if we can customize to each person's needs. So I absolutely love that. A lot of times people think, executives are leaders and there's got to be a box, right? But each person is so different and we're all so complicated that it needs to be.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of human nature, right? If we were to be categorized and put in a box, um, we would be robots, right? Each of us have our own journey. And I just hope that what we are sharing here today is going to give you some insights to put your finger on what this vagueness that you might experience here and there or on regular basis might be about.
Mhm.
Okay. So I guess we can move on to our next segment, which is to learn a little bit more about where do these feelings come from. I already have kind of alluded about the brightness and idealism or perfectionist tendencies and neurodivergency, that's where they might be coming from. The overarching commonality among some of the traits research indicates that contributes to these types of feelings is being bright, gifted, or neurodivergent. We don't know why, but we only know that there is a correlation between the likelihood of experiencing these types of feelings and brightness. It's the expansive awareness, I feel like. It's not even your brightness or intelligence that plays a role with the gifted definition or neurodivergency. You will see that one of the tendencies or kind of characteristics, the way it's explained, is expansive awareness. I think what we are talking about here today is a lot related to that. It's the expansive awareness that comes with the being bright that makes one wonder and question the meaning and purpose behind existence rather than merely surviving, right? If you are here, I would say like you are beyond surviving, right? You are not so much caught up in fight and flight. You are able to see through the veil of uh, truth or not. And we will talk about disillusionment in a minute as well. But it's the expensive awareness that kind of goes into it. And I also believe that it's the higher self, allow me to say the spirit, nudging your conditioned self, or call it ego, to turn inwards, right? It's let's first review some of the personality traits that kind of are common among bright minds and that contributes to these feelings. But it's when you have realized that the external is not enough and now you want more, and that more kind of doesn't exist in the external, and then you have to go inward. Some of the traits: idealism. It's the drive for perfection. One of my clients that I worked with that was in high school. I worked with him about 4 to 5 years ago. He was excelling in all of his AB classes, specifically in language arts. The boy had started reading at the age of like 3. You can just call like one of those like prodigies of like you just know that that's what it is, just like some musicians and stuff like that. But then a pattern emerged that he would not go to school on the test days. when we explored that together in counseling, he discovered that he was afraid he was not going to get 100. He told me, why take a test if I am not going to get 100 on it? That's the mindset. And that can, again, I'm going to tie everything to something is missing, right? And this type of idealism can contribute to something is missing because we are looking for the whole picture, right? And when we see some pieces are missing and there's isn't perfection, it makes us question, right? Again, it's a quest. When you don't reach the ideal perfection, you emotionally feel that you didn't give your all, like you have failed the universe, for a lack of a better word. It's not just failing yourself, not just failing your parents or people you know, your teachers, your guides or mentors. The feeling of failure is much deeper than that. Why do we have this feeling? Again, we only know that bright minds have these types of feelings and personality traits, but not so much sure. But that failure or feeling of failing, it goes beyond than just failing myself, like as an ordinary person would. Chuck, do you have something to add?
Nope, I'm just in the chat messaging.
Okay. And mundane. Since I was a baby, I used to cry when it's time for the sun to set for the day. As a young adult, I struggled with sunsets because they indicated another day gone. That feeling of failing the universe, we talked about in the previous slide, would expand to my whole day and life evaluation rather than just one task. And bright minds have a complex relationship with time. They always feel this sense of urgency that they are wasting time, that they have a race against time. One of my clients ended many romantic relationships immaturely on the first indication if the guy didn't meet her idol. The urge was to the urge to do that came from much deeper sense of urgency that she was just wasting her time if this person wasn't going to be idle or perfect. You will start to see how all these traits kind of start to intertwine into more of like a personality type that contributes to someone who feels like something is always missing. The same can be said about like higher achievers. Bright minds are often known to set another goal before they even pause to celebrate their current goals. Who has done that here? I'm sure many of us, yes. You don't just kind of go to achieve a goal and then appreciate it. It's the next thing. It's the next thing. And we'll see like how it just continues to add to this perpetual feelings of something is missing. And what we know from research, actually, that bright minds as young as even 8 or 9 start to question about life and death, meaning and purpose. Again, it goes back to the expansive awareness that comes with brightness or being a neurodivergent. A quick story. I want Chuck to add on this as well. But before that, I'll share a story of this young boy who was 9 when I started working with him, who started questioning his parents about their Catholic beliefs. That just didn't add up to him. Things didn't make sense to him about heaven and hell. I clearly remember our first session talking about heaven and hell, and all a 9-year old's mind kind of wrapped around this big concept that someone, with many degrees would have hard time explaining, or even a monk or father. He was able to see and question the gaps in understandings and beliefs. When his mom had contacted me, her words were, "We can't answer his questions anymore." They are often, these individuals kind of often are called old souls. I'm sure you probably have been called one, or have heard someone who fits this category as kind of an old soul, that they like to hang out with much older people than of their age. Chuck, I'm sure, like, I want you to add, like, we have talked about your childhood.
Yeah, thank you. So when I was in that age range, maybe 8, 9, 10, I used to lay awake at night, completely unable to sleep, wondering what the meaning of life was, what happened after we died, what was the purpose of all of this. And that, I'm going to put this in air quotes, that is not normal for for a young child to think about those things. My parents were completely unprepared to deal with my questions. I mean, my parents, especially my father, who I believe probably was neurodivergent as well, bright people, but they used to provide me with answers like, well, you live as long as you live and you don't know what happens when you die. And you just hope it's all good. Well, none of that was good enough for me. And I used to like wonder about like all the people in my neighborhood, the people in my town, how does this all fit together? I used to be blown away by the magnitude of the world and the millions and billions of people in the world. And I used to just sit and ruminate about these things. And of course, there are no easy answers. And, when we're children, these are not easy answers. I'll just throw this in. There's a wonderful writer, Father Richard Rohr, who's a Franciscan priest, and his
Mhm.
favorite book of his is called Falling Upward. And he's done some podcasts with Brene Brown. But one of the things he said was when he was young, he used to think the power was in the answers. And he's come to realize the power is in the questions. And that's something
Absolutely.
a young mind isn't prepared to understand.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Chuck, for sharing. And disillusionment, I alluded a little bit earlier. It can also come from the search for the truth. We slowly come to face that there are many lies we are told over the years of our upbringing. When we are disillusioned from them, that's where this feeling of like, what's missing? What's the purpose of this all? Like, is anybody trustworthy, or can be trusted? Why isn't everybody doing what is the right thing to do? Um, any of these questions, when people don't add up or things don't add up, they kind of go back to this void that you know is deep down inside of you, and you feel like, I need something more. I need something solid ground to stand on, um, and there isn't, and all you have is your questions. But later on, you do find out that the power indeed is in the questions, not the answers. And existence, from the questions to not having the answers. Going back to the sunset story of my life, that part of the day would remind me of the cycle of life and death. Similar to Chuck, what he shared, he was 8, 9, 10 when he was wondering about what was all this about and what was the purpose of all this. I also remember going to bed, looking at the stars crying myself to sleep, wondering very similar questions of what was so special about today than yesterday, and how tomorrow is going to be any different. Shall it be any different? What can I do to make it better? And sunsets, in that sense, was a reminder that another wasteful day has gone and dark night has fallen.
Mm.
And what I didn't know at the time, that what I was doing was not enough, but it was just a feeling. This is sad feeling. What I was doing is not enough. I should be doing more, being more, but yet not knowing what would that more be. So the feeling can come from having an awareness of the mundane and then desire to be more. That's why the struggle with the mundane is like, come on, get on with this. Like, what are we doing here? Right? Why am I keep doing the same thing again and again? And what am I achieving out of this? Right? But then it's the idealism in you that's propelling you towards questioning that. That's kind of extracting. Again, I think it's the nudge from the spirit to kind of allow yourself to expand, right? That expansive awareness. So these are kind of some of the things that I wanted to share where they can be coming from. Again, these are just some of the things that have been noted in the research, that I have noted in my personal journey, what I have noted in my clients' journeys, in my research, but there could be many more different ways where this is coming from. Because of my practice with the kind of spirituality sense, I feel it's the deeper urge to connect with the whole, that to bridge the gap. And now we are going to go into our next segment of what might help. You probably already know, like, I experienced this, I have felt this, I don't care where they come from, I just want to be able to cope with it, right? I just want to know what might help. I don't like these feelings. And I hear you. It's hard at times. Again, going back to a 9-year-old that I have worked with, like, he just was like, nobody can answer my questions, I am very frustrated. And I could see him like a very wise person, and then a 9-year-old's frustration. So it's a hard place to be at when you don't have someone to relate to who can answer your questions. But allow me to share some of the things that have helped me personally and some of my clients, that what I have been using in my practice with my clients as well. So now that we know where these feelings might come from, what to do about it? I say, give meaning, look into meaning and purpose. And what do I really mean by that? When I was depressed in college and discovered psychology, that gave me the chance to learn about myself. I strived to do better and better. And that's what your idealism is going to propel you to do. And that's when you don't even celebrate your achieved goal, and now you're on to the next one already, right? Because you want to do better. And it's the emotional drive. And out of that era of my depression, I grew the desire and drive to understand me, my feelings, my thoughts, my existence, my purpose, my meaning. Who was I? Was the big question. And Chuck, I know, has shared with me that he also worked on that for his personal journey and helps his clients to do what he calls I-isms, right? You have done that as well. Anything
Yeah,
you want to share?
yeah, I call them I am statements,
I am statements.
and
Yes,
help
that's
people
right.
really think about who they really are at a deeper level, and I can share more about that as we go on. But ultimately, and this might just be my particular bias, but I think a lot of people feel like this. If I'm not really understanding meaning, then what am I doing? I'm just going through the motions of things.
Yep, exactly. Uh, and I also wanted to be more than just mundane. I buried myself under self-help psychology, spirituality books. I wanted to get the answers to my mundane existence. I wanted to know that there is some meaning and purpose to this madness of daily routine. Now, what I discovered was not that helpful. I discovered existentialism and found that, according to existential theoretical framework, that there is no meaning embedded in life itself. We create our meaning. The world is meaningful and meaningless both at the same time. That was not very helpful as a seeker who wanted and needed an external validation, external answers like, this is what your life's purpose is, this is what you're supposed to be doing. Just go and then now do it. There's a life manual out there. But what it did, it turned the search inward. It was the internal journey that helped me find the satisfaction, meaning, purpose within me that leads us towards self-actualization. So I would urge you to kind of spend time with yourself. And I am big fan of journalism. Not journalism. I am big fan of journalism, but journaling. That journal your thoughts. When you are posing that question and you go into freestyle journaling, I feel that at some point when you started journaling, was your ego kind of trying to answer the question that you posed to yourself? At some point, I feel there is a transition that something else takes over. And I have read my journals from back when, and then I keep all my journals. I'm like, I don't know how I got to this insight. This is deep. And I have surprised myself when I go back and read some of my journal entries that, you know, Rabindranath Tagore is India's famous poet. And once he was asked a question about one of his really deeper poems, and he wrote about existentialism a lot. That, what is the meaning of this poem? He was like, I don't know. And I have felt the same as well through my journals, that I don't know where or how and where that insight came from, but it's helpful. So questioning, as even Chuck had mentioned, is important. Question and then see if you can adapt a ritual or habit, whether it's journaling, whether it's meditating, reflections, whatever it is, to see what answers come from within. And that's where you're going to find them. And that leads me to our next, self-actualization. So through this quest of asking questions, again, it's your idealism of being your best that's kind of pulling you up, right? It's the expansive of your awareness, the consciousness trying to grow and develop, and it's the internal or emotional drive. And I would urge you to commit to that. This fancy word of self-actualization just means that you are committed to reaching your highest potential, that you are on an inward journey that will show you your depths. And don't take me wrong, but those depths can be scary too. You meet your own demons. You find yourself not so truthful not so smart, not so funny, not so trustworthy. All of those things that you point out in other people that they are not that, right? You find that you are all of those things because the world is your mirror. The self is interacting with the self. That's what we learned from the quantum mechanics of the deeper dives, is like everything is interconnected, right? It's just that web. Everything is being reflected back at you. I would urge you to keep that commitment, because behind all that chaos, mess, ugliness, something beautiful is waiting for you. For me, it's resting in the knowing that I am neither good nor bad. I just am. And that's where I teach empathy, to know that that's enough. That's enough for you to know and say, this is who I am, and accept yourself for that. You will know your truths. You will find that commitment if you commit to just becoming your best self version. And another thing I would say you might want to dive into is into your values and beliefs. So, march towards self actualization helps you find yourself and helps you clarify your values and beliefs. As you question and you start to see that I am I am not so trustworthy, I am not so truthful that I expect myself and other people to be. Again, the idealism is going to have you do that. But you first, I kind of like to remind myself of the hero's journey, right? So hero has a struggle that he has come upon, and he goes on to finding the solution for that problem. Along the journey, meets many obstacles as he overcomes to find that power within, and returns home with this newfound power. And that's your life too. You or each situation, you want to kind of start to apply that hero's journey to your situations or your struggles or problems, that it can be helpful in continuing to bring a clarity in your values and beliefs. And what you are going to find in the end is that it's the balance. And yes, the quantum mechanics kind of like, also, again, I'm going to take the aid of that. We live in that dichotomy, right? We have a hero because there's a villain. We have day because there's night. We have good because there's evil. But in the end, I feel that journey is about kind of merging the two. That's where the reality is. And again, quantum mechanics would come in to help us say that wave-like function and particle both together makes the reality that we see, right? So it's the dichotomy or the dualistic nature of the universe that brings us closer to it's from a psychology point of view, it's the fragmented self, right? We start to shun out the aspects of ourselves that are not desirable by either you or someone else, and then we just try to cut those things off. But this journey is, again, about bringing them back to see the whole picture, see yourself as whole. So it's kind of like bringing it back home. And another way that we can kind of see this, Chuck uses this concept in his work a lot, are kind of the three main gods from Hinduism. We have Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu. So these are, Brahma is the creator, and Shiva is the destroyer, and Vishnu is the preserver. And understanding that we all play these different roles at different times in our lives, understanding the connectedness of these roles can help you cope with these big existential feelings that one time you might be the creator, one time you might be the destroyer, one time you might be the preserver. And it's okay to be all of them or one of them at any given time. Chuck, would you like to share how you use this concept in your work?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And this ties back to the previous topic of values and beliefs as well. So, literally 30 years ago, I read a book by Tom Peters called The Pursuit of Wow. And he introduced this concept of these three incarnations of God. And what I loved about it is he said that we should all reflect on these and think about the things that are good in our lives and we want to preserve, the things that are not no longer serving us and we want to destroy or move away from those things. And then that gives us room to create the new things in our lives that are good and beneficial to us. And so for many, many years, I have done an annual exercise of really reflecting on what my values are, because I feel like my values and beliefs are really where I need to live, and I need to have that alignment. And so, one of the things I encourage my clients to do is to reflect on their values, and not just reflect on the values, but think about how to articulate those values and how to live them in your life so that you are most closely aligned with your values and beliefs. And that all really ties into you achieving your meaning in life. And so for me, and I've had a lot of long, complicated ramblings over this, but I now have hit a point where my expression of my values has been pretty consistent for maybe 4 or 5 years now. I put it in 3 words: learn, care, and act. So I approach the world with curiosity. I want to have empathy and try to understand other people. And then I need to figure out what the right actions are for me to take based on what I know and what I care about. And so each person can have a different view of this, but I think it's a wonderful reflection. And clients who I've worked with who have done this exercise report amazing results, not just in their own lives, but in the lives of the people that they touch. So we could probably do a webinar just on this concept alone, Gurpreet.
Absolutely. And each of these concepts, I feel like we can expand. This is very like 3,000 foot view of what all this takes. And
Mhm.
a good point that you had brought that your values for the last 4 or 5 years have been this, and what you have nailed it. The point I want to make is that these change as you grow, your awareness grows, your values are going to change, and that's part of the clarity. And it's okay to change, and it's okay to shed that what I was 5 years ago, I no longer want to be. And it's okay to shed that and move forward. Great. Thank you for sharing, Chuck. And the next tool I want to share with you that you might want to look into or commit to is emotional stability. The biggest thing that has helped me and still is very helpful is to practice emotional stability. For example, when there is a situation that sort of shakes me to the core and I start to spiral with negative thoughts and anxious feelings, which means I am operating from fight and flight mode, I make myself journal again, note for the journal those feelings, and then sit with them at least for about 20 minutes through deep breathing. And I'll recommend what has helped and how to kind of move forward with that. And I counsel myself with thoughts like, I am not my thoughts. I am not my emotions. And repeat these phrases or affirmations again and again till I start to be an observer of my emotions. And that's, again, the concept of observer also comes from quantum mechanics, because we are just observing what's going on, right? And that's the higher self. You want to bring that higher self, or like the meta view, because you are not your emotions. They are just the signals. You're not your thoughts. And a great resource to do this work is Dan Siegel's work, Emotional Stability and Emotional Intelligence. But his book, Mindsight, has a lot of exercises and stories that he shares of integrating the left and right brain that brings the emotional stability. Again, we're going to go to the duality of the things, right? We are humans and we have that spectrum of emotions. But what we want is to feel the emotions, but not get swept with them. And this is another area of work that you can commit to, and emotion counseling, therapy, coaching, a lot of help can be taken with this stuff, because when you have repressed emotions, you get just the reactive part, not the acting part. And you want to get to the acting part, or at least to try to do that as much as possible.
So
And
let me just interject quickly. We have
sure.
about 4 more minutes of presentation time, and then we're going to do some Q&A. So if you have questions, feel free to start populating those in the chat as we wrap up here. I'm sorry, Gurpreet, I just wanted to do that housekeeping.
Nope. Yes, I have just 2 more slides, and yep, we are wrapping up. And another tool I would say that you want to start looking into, invest, is to live in the moment. And that goes with the previous one of the emotional stability. Learning to live in the moment, it's kind of so that you're not swept with whatever emotions are throwing at you. And one of the biggest or quickest way to do that is to engage your all 5 senses, as to kind of like anchor you. See what you can see, smell what you can smell, and touch what you can touch. Again, going back to the observation or observer, you are like, for example, you have a site that you're describing, but you're describing that as an observer, as a kind of like, you only have come to this moment and that's about it. And that will ground you in this moment and noting the things that you are noting, instead of being in your past or in your future. This is another tool that you can look into. A good resource to do this work is The Power of Now, is a book by Eckhart Tolle. And spending time in silence, or just deep breathing, or meditating walk, all of those are good techniques to kind of look into this work. And last but not the least, I would say, be happy with the mundane. It's here to stay. Finding meaning with whatever you have present in your life. When we learn to find meaning in the mundane, it helps us to transcend our consciousness to the next level. Because now you're free of just the victim role. Why me? Why this? Why that? You have just come to acceptance, and now you can explore further territories of your consciousness. All of the above techniques are going to help you get to the next level in your consciousness evolution. As higher consciousness develops, the struggle for selfhood is gradually replaced with an awareness of the unity of life and one's unique role in promoting the good of the whole. And then your idealism, your brightness, your perfectionism is in the service of joy, service of truth, service of beauty, the service of love. And it sort of becomes more of a blessing than a curse that some people can start to kind of feel that why I don't want these feelings, why do I have these feelings, which I have heard a lot as well. um, and then what we're really after, I say growth and development of an actualized self. Dalai Lama would say that all beings want to be happy, and it's so true. We all want to be happy. But from an existential point of view, we have to create our own happiness. And I hope that you have gained some tools here today and understanding what you are feeling, why you're feeling, maybe sort of, and some tools, what you can do to go on that inward journey to make that commitment. So thank you for letting us share this information with you guys. And we're here to answer any specific questions.
Thank you, Gurpreet. I really appreciate all of the wisdom that you've shared. I'm going to go ahead and unpin both of us. And if you would like to stop sharing, we can then ask anybody can
I'll open up my chat.
unmute and do whatever. I don't have any questions in chat, so you can we can unmute. I'm just trying to get back to the spot to unpin myself because I don't need to stay pinned here. There we go. So if anybody has any questions you would like to ask, you can unmute and ask them live with or without your camera on, and we'll just do it. We've got a small enough group. We can do a popcorn style if anybody has any questions. So I have one in the chat. I believe I do not have the issue the other perfectionist has, as I have worked on understanding, it just cut off, understanding myself and my NUI for decades. I think my disappointment issues are more to do with ASD that is co-occurring or part of my perfectionism, in that it has enabled me to be highly intelligent, yet I've had trouble achieving the level of success the clients seem to have had. In my work life primarily, I feel unfulfilled because I cannot achieve my potential. I literally cannot give my services away. So I'm going to take the first shot at this because in my work with my wonderful therapist, I should give credit, Dr. Charles Green, who helped me reach agreement on my ASD diagnosis. But he always tells me, you're doing enough. You're doing enough. And I keep part of this idealistic makeup is I can always do more. And I think that, that's one of the challenges we have is we do a lot of social comparison of, how do we measure up to so-and-so and why am I not doing more? And I think we just need to constantly say, I'm still becoming and I'm going to be more than I am today, but today I am enough. So how's that for duality? So Gurpreet, feel free to chime in on that.
And you and your therapist both are right. And when I work with my clients on this, that's one of the first things that we work on. And it's not pretty. It's not what everybody wants to hear, that you are enough. You are doing what you are doing. And that getting to that acceptance is the first stage of achieving more. Because when you are saying you're lacking and you want to do more, that's the perpetual cycle, actually. Because in your eyes, you're not going to see what is enough, right? And I'm going to give example. If you have ever known a person who struggles with eating, right? And you can, for example, an anorexic person, you can see them that they are too bare bones, but they don't see themselves as that. They always see themselves as fat. they are going to restrict eating. They are going to do extensive exercise because that's what they see. They are not going to see it through your eyes. They're going to see it through their eyes. So a lot of the time, the struggle with this is that you're seeing it through your eyes. You're not seeing it with others' eyes. It's hard to see it. But the quest really is that you want to see it with your eyes, that it is enough. And then you can, yes, move on to achieve much more success, however you define it. But I feel like it starts with accepting where you are.
Thank you, Gurpreet. We appreciate all of you, the time you've spent with us. We encourage you to stay tuned to heartmindquest.com and also on LinkedIn and on Facebook. Gurpreet and I will continue to share some information there. And I hope that we're able to provide another webinar in this series of learning and discovery. Gurpreet, anything you'd like to add as we close out here?
No, great. Thank you so much for joining us and allowing us to share this information with you. We are excited to start this new community, and if it flourishes into something and if there's a need, happy to be here.
Thank you, Gurpreet. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye now.
Thank you. Great.
Thank you.
Bye.